Hello, welcome to another episode of All Code Sucks. It's almost like I have a new place to get terrible code from that's I've been working on. Anyway, we're going to be talking about GitHub Actions today. We're going to be talking about Xargs, and we're going to be talking about pre-commit, of course. Yeah, so this is some code that I have to assume that the author, well, let's be honest, this is probably LLM generated garbage as usual, but I have to assume the author sort of knew what they were doing and they knew, oh, Xargs is going to be important to solve this particular problem. But anyway, let's jump into what's going on here and I will explain why this sort of appears to work, but really does not. Okay. I have to explain some implementation detail first because I've left out the changed files implementation here. The goal of this workflow, the high-level goal of this workflow, is to run pre-commit only against the files that are changed in a pull request. I can go on in detail about why that isn't necessarily a good idea, especially because a change in one file can cause a failure in another, depending on import following or any various number of problems there. But ignoring that problem, we'll assume that this is exactly what they intended. This still has some glaring problems. Now, there's actually a plethora of bugs because I left out the implementation here, but there's actually a bug in this as well, beyond what it says on the tin here, which is it's going to write a file that contains the file names that were changed to this particular path. The idea being that you could then use this particular path and run a command with it. And that's basically what it does here. And this works, but has some problems. The other bug in this particular action here that's not shown here is this output just contains space delimited file names. No quoting, no escaping, just space delimited file names. And spoilers, if you don't quote things properly, you're going to have issues. And actually, that is the same bug with this line here. But let's talk about what this line actually does. So the goal is to run pre-commit run -h files and then the list of file names. And it does do that. However, what Xargs is going to do is it's going to take its input and then for each argument, it's going to call some command. I did a video on Xargs. You can look that up here. Oh, spoilers, we're also going to be pointing out a similar bug in a piece of code that I don't think I wrote, but I definitely reviewed it at my previous employer. Xargs anti-writes code. This video goes into lots and lots of details. I think this is actually a very well, wow, it's an old one. A very good video if you haven't seen it yet. So definitely search that up and check that one out as well. Okay, but anyway. So by default, Xargs calls echo, and this command basically does what you expect it to. So for instance, if we make a example.txt, which has file 1, file 2, file 3, and we call Xargs with that as input, it works. Trust that it works. I mean, you could also put Xargs echo hi, and you can see that it's appending these arguments onto the end of this command here. It just happens to default to echo. In fact, we can use Python 3, I don't know, import sys print sys.argv. This is actually the command that I use all the time to sort of demo exactly what arguments I'm receiving without having to do anything else. And you can see here that those 3 arguments in this file are being folded into arguments here. And yes, it does do exactly the same thing as cat in this example. And honestly, this could have been just as wrong by doing cat here. But that's not the problem here. The problem here is if file names contain spaces in, and let's just assume that this particular action was actually implemented correctly and properly quoted things. So let's adjust this. Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's adjust this output file to represent a file with spaces with proper quoting in here. So let's say it's single quote delimited. Now, if we were to run our Xargs example here, you'll see that it sort of does the right thing. This sort of works. But if we, of course, didn't put our quotes around here, we splice this file name. And so we end up with this file name in a bunch of different parts, which is not what we intended to do. Also, I think if we have double quotes here, no, that still works. Anyway, or is it escaped spaces? There's several different ways that these file diff things work. I guess Xargs managed to handle those. I'm surprised. Anyway, good job, Xargs. Except that it only handles those in this particular command here. But if we look at our expansion here, we're actually going to call Xargs and then substitute the arguments afterwards. So if we instead did Python 3-c import sys parenthesis.argv and then passed in that Xargs with input here, you'll notice that we are again back to splicing that file name here. Even if we, we did it with backslashes, even if we quote it, we're still, ruining this file here. So if any of the files in the code base contain spaces or any sort of white space or special character being like a shell character, a $, a semicolon, then this command doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. It's going to error in like weird ways on trying to, match files that don't exist. And it turns out this particular code base that I took this from has a few hundred files that fit this description, either with almost all of them are with spaces, but there was like I think 1 or 2 with special characters in it too that would have been interpreted by the shell. So that's the crux of this bug here is Xargs not really doing the right thing here. You could have used cat and accomplished the same thing, but the other bug here, I mean there's like 4 bugs in this line. Like one, Xargs isn't being used properly, and we're shell splicing here. In fact, if you had a file name with something particularly nefarious, like, I don't know, maybe you named your file echo hi. Actually, is this gonna work? Yeah, I think it is. If you named your file $parentheses echo hi, and even if you had proper shell coding here, and then you ran Xargs on it, oh, that still worked. I guess you would need this. No, even still. Okay, I guess it's not a security problem here per se, but it is a shell splicing problem. Okay, anyway, that's fine then. Let's talk about why you would actually use Xargs in the first place and why I think this is a hallucinated LLM nonsense here, which is part of the point of Xargs is to prevent calling commands with too many arguments. How do I even demo this? I guess we could do like echo and then print a giant string? I don't know. This is gonna be terrible. This is not gonna do what I want. Oh, it actually succeeded. Okay, this is I need to go bigger. Anyway, the point I want to say here is that the entire goal of Xargs is to avoid calling a command with too long or too many arguments. Both of those are limitations on most platforms. On Linux, it's a particularly large thing. Xargs show limits, and it tells you that. Oh, I guess it's trying to run Xargs now. Yeah, so on my particular platform, this is the number of characters I can use. This is longer than that. Oh, I guess maximum length of command we could actually use. This number seems bigger. What the heck? Oh, because it's the shell built in. So I would have needed bin echo. And now it should tell me, yeah, there we go. Okay, this is what I actually wanted to demo, was bin echo here. Yeah, and so Xargs tries to prevent this by splitting your command into a bunch of different executions, each, passing the set of file names that it could pass along to this. And if we look back to our workflow here, if we got so many files here that it didn't fit on the command line length here, we would still fail in the same way with argument list too long because we didn't actually use Xargs properly. Now, the question is how do we actually implement this properly? And typically the way that you do this is you use Xargs to run your program. So taking this example here, and then pipe your input from that. So, and again, assuming that it's properly shell escaped or whatever, you could pipe this in here. And technically, you can get away with single quotes here since GitHub Actions is the one that's going to be substituting this, not something else. And so what this is going to do now is it's going to pass that file as an input to Xargs, and then Xargs is going to split this command into however many things you would need here. And again, you'd have to fix the implementation so it does proper shell coding. But if we go back to our example here with our input, I guess we already showed it. We already showed it working properly by doing this here. So you can see here that it's properly preserving. Oh, except we didn't have this quoted properly. Yeah. It's now properly preserving each of these arguments, assuming they're properly shell quoted inside this particular file here. Now, I actually find this, quote interpretation behavior a little bit nerve-wracking. So I tend to prefer two different approaches. One of those is to instead limit these by new lines. And yes, technically a file can contain new lines. For instance, if we touch bling string hi new line hello hello, we now have a file that has a new line in its name. Yes, ls does some weird wacky stuff. I guess we get a bling string in the middle here anyway. But you can have new lines in file names, at least on POSIX. I don't know about Windows, probably not Windows, but wow, and my tab complete is broken, so I can't even RM it that way, but we can do it this way. So you can technically have new lines in file names, and so this, what I'm about to show you, is not actually as good as you would want to do, which is to use a delimiter of new line with Xargs. This allows you to have unescaped file names inside your example.txt here, but still be able to delimit them by new lines. But again, as I showed, you can have a new line in a file name, so this isn't perfect either. Probably the better way to do this is to have some sort of null byte delimiter, and I'm not going to edit this file and put null bytes between each of these, but then you would use xargs-0 instead, and this will take an input that is split by null bytes and properly write that out. Which brings us to our second mistake of the same exact problem, but in a slightly different manner, which is the version of this from my previous employer, which tries very, very hard to do this correctly, but unfortunately makes the exact same mistake that, well, not the exact same mistake, but a similar mistake with Xargs. And in order to show that, we're actually looking at this other, where the heck is it? This other GitHub action here, paths filter. This one has a slightly different output from the imaginary one that we used here. This one outputs either as JSON, shell escaped, or CSV, or space escaped. And obviously we've shown that space escaped, or space delimited is useless. CSV, we're not using a CSV parser. Shell escaped would work with Xargs probably, but it makes me nervous. And so the obvious answer is to use JSON here. Unfortunately, if we simulate this, so F1, F2, F3 as an array, we can pipe this to JQ. JQ is a JSON querying tool. And we can turn this particular input into a series of, we can turn the JSON into a bunch of file names here pretty easily. Now, unfortunately, if we take a look at what we had done down here with using that exact same thing, this is a cheeky way to take this as standard input to this command here. Pipe this to Xargs. We'll see that Xargs, we'll use that same command, import sys print sys argv. We'll see that this works fine if our file names don't contain spaces. Spoilers. But if we have spaces, you'll see that we have the same space splicing bug here. We're still splitting this argument into multiple things. And yes, you can fix this in the same way that we talked about before with delimiting on new line. Of course, if your file names for whatever reason had new lines in them, this again is broken, and we'll split this apart. But we actually have a better answer to this problem here, which is JQ has, I don't know if it's on the version that I'm on, raw output 0, which will instead separate the output by null bytes. And yay, it does have raw output 0. So fun fact about JQ, I actually contributed a short option to this, but it, it doesn't error anymore. Wait, what? JQ dot. Does this not work? Wait, what? It's in the version of JQ that I have? That's weird, because they removed this option. Oh, no, this is the version that has the option, but it does nothing, I think. Maybe? That's super weird. Oh, this should be numbers. What's going on here? -0. Oh. Before it? Okay, yeah, this is the version that doesn't have it, but for some reason there's like a weird bug where it just ignores the option in some cases. Anyway, all that to say is JQ has a raw output 0, which is going to delimit all of the outputs by null bytes, and then we can use Xargs -0 to unpack those arguments properly into positional arguments for this command, and then preserve things even with new lines in them. You should never have a new line in file name, but it's possible, so some people do it. Anyway, so yeah, that's a series of using Xargs incorrectly and making the same space delimited file, or I guess internal spaced file name bug in two different places, two different ways to make the same mistake. This is like a, you know, the like skateboarding meme of like junior developer on skateboard. I guess I could just look it up. Nah, you'll look it up. This junior developer like crashing, and then like senior developer like doing a kickflip and then landing on a rake, and like this is the more complicated way to do cat, but in completely the wrong way. Anyway, this has been another episode of All Code Sucks. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you in the next one.